Justin Sandlin from Home Inspection Carolinas, and we've been talking about tips for the move-up buyer. Really, that just basically means anyone that's owned a home, that's getting ready to buy their second or third home, there's all kinds of things that you got to think about, moving parts, things to balance. We knocked out 4 major tips. We're going to pick up maybe where we left off here, Orson.
Sure.
One of the tips that you suggest is for the current seller, right, or that move-up buyer, to have you come and do what I call a market analysis, and have you come and do a free consultation. Maybe you could explain that in your words. I'm dancing here.
Sure. So, so I think you hit the key things. It's exactly that. We will come in. It's a free consultation, and we obviously will look at all the other homes around them. What have they sold for? What's on the market? And we'll give them a really strong feel for what we believe their home would sell for. Now, obviously, there's no exact science to this, but we're going to use our best experience as well as the data that's out there to try to give them a feel that a similar home in a similar condition, what we believe that their house would sell for. We call that a market analysis, or they may hear it referred to as a CMA. And that's really one of the key things to value in their home.
Perfect. So once that step is done, the next natural step or tip that you have listed here is really to have then the home evaluated for readiness. What I mean by that is, yes, you can come out and do the consultation, but there's a lot of things that the seller has to think about to make sure that the house is ready. What are some of those components?
Yeah, sure. So we need to make sure that a buyer who comes to a home can see themselves in that home, right? And in some instances, it means, unfortunately, that you've got to take down, great aunt's homemade vase that's sitting in the middle of the table, or that picture that's sitting on the wall from your ski vacation somewhere. So
dogs playing poker.
That is where we'll do it, right?
Kittens and clowns.
Right. So we want to make sure that as much as you love your furniture and you love the way that your home sits, that buyer can see themselves in there. And in some instances, folks are open to hearing that directly from me or one of my agents, and in some instances they're not. And so we will bring in a stager, and these are individuals who are licensed to do these things. And it's funny, we've seen some cases where the stager will say exactly what we said, exactly the same words, but they'll listen to the stager. So we're okay with that.
Right. I just thought of somebody saying that. Imagine if you got a hotel room, you rented a hotel room, and you walked in there and there were pictures of the owner's kids, and there were personal items and stuff.
Good. Yeah. Wouldn't you be like, what's the deal?
This seems like somebody else's room.
That is a great example. I've got to use that. I think that's a great example. You wouldn't be able to see yourself sleeping on that bed.
Yeah. When you go into a hotel room, it's very neutral. Very, you can see yourself. But imagine if it was a lot of personal trinkets and looked like a Cracker Barrel exploded in there or something. With all the knickknacks. You wouldn't want to stay there.
Great. It's a great point. It's a great point. So it goes back to staging. Again, we can do some of that very light, but we're happy to, in most instances, bring in a professional stager. And then the other pieces that go in hand with that are the decluttering, cleaning, which is kind of basic. We might ask for the carpet to be cleaned. And then obviously we talked before in your last segment to Preston as it relates to kind of the importance of that pre-home inspection. So those are kind of key components of having the home evaluated and getting it ready and prepared to sell.
Exactly. So what about, you mentioned an area too about cleanliness and so forth.
Yeah, so look, we all live in our homes differently, and as realtors we understand that. Many of us have kids, we have pets, and those are two different things, guys, kids and pets, by the way.
Not in our house.
So
your pet shouldn't be your kid.
Right, probably
That's
not.
just me.
Probably not. So we understand that you have to live in your home. We understand that life continues even when you're trying to sell your home. But we also want to make sure that when somebody walks in that home again, that there's not a truck sitting on the floor that somebody can trip on. That the pet here has been vacuumed off the couch. That the dog isn't running around. That he's at the daycare for the day. So we understand, as I said, that life continues and it doesn't just stop simply because you need to sell that home. But we ask for our sellers to be realistic and try their best to do those things that we suggest, because ultimately our goal is to sell that home as quickly as possible for the most amount of money that we can get you. And if those little things can contribute to that, I would hope that most homeowners would be willing to take our advice there, Chris.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
Another area that you say should be evaluated is areas that may need repairs or renovation. So what would you share with our listener there?
Yeah, and some of those things are items that the homeowner knows. Maybe underneath the sink, they know there's been a drip under the sink for years, right? They've seen it under there. Maybe they know that the door doesn't close perfectly, and so some of those things we know that the homeowner knows. We can work with them, to help them find a handyman, and this is someone that can probably come in and knock out what we call low-hanging fruit. These are easy things that can just be done to aesthetically improve the home, and then in conjunction with what Preston's team or a home inspector comes in and finds, we can get those larger items in addition to those small things done to get that home ready to be showed and sold.
Yeah, and you're going to go in also and say, you know what, it's been 30 years. Some of this we might want to update now because I can get you a lot more money for the house than if we don't, right? But you're the consultant there. So really, that tip number 6 was really have your home evaluated for readiness. That includes staging, the cleaning and decluttering, looking at repairs and renovations, and the pre-inspection that we talked about. So, all right, let's roll to tip number 7, which is get qualified. And maybe I should have you read this one. Get pre-qualified before you list your home for sale. Why is that important?
Yeah, so again, you want to know what your buying power is, right? You want to know, we don't want to take you out and show you a $300,000 home when you can afford a $250,000. Or the other side of that coin is maybe you have a lot more buying potential than what you actually think. So we look at what we think your house can sell for and your pre-qualification, and that guides us towards that perfect home for you. So they go hand in hand. I'm sure, Chris, you can talk a little bit more as well on kind of the mortgage side, balancing buying and selling and what's important there as well.
Yeah, I think, I can remember vividly, I had a realtor reach out to me and hand me a referral, and he said, I'm getting ready to list this house for sale, but I told him, look, we need to get something from a mortgage lender first. And a lot of times the seller isn't thinking, well, I better talk to a mortgage guy because I'm getting ready to sell my house. Right? It doesn't seem like a logical step. And I remember vividly, it was a referral down in Monroe, and I called the guy, we got the information, and he ended up having a 400 credit score.
Wow.
Oof.
And he wasn't, not only did he not sell, he wasn't going to qualify for the new house, right? So it saved the realtor a lot of time and energy from having to go through all these steps that we've just talked about, because it was going to be a move-up buyer, right? And we've more focused on how to get that guy's credit back on track so that he could then turn around and buy in the future. So you just never know. Sometimes there's a collection that can show up in your credit report that can drop your score that you never knew about. Things can happen, and so you don't want surprises, and you want to be prepared also as you go into the new offer, especially in a competitive market, that if you haven't done a lot of your paperwork and gotten your pre-approval, then it could affect your ability to get the new house too.
Absolutely.
So you have to be prepared. What usually happens is you see the house you want to go to see, you call Horace and say, I know you got a house on the market, but like I found a new house, and you say, well, did you call our team at NFM Lending to get qualified like I told you 3 weeks ago? And they, well, no, and well, now it's Saturday, right? Now we're usually available on Saturday, but the point is you want to think about this process really at the front of the time that you're thinking about selling.
Absolutely.
Get that duck in a row too, especially before you box up tax returns and W-2s and throw them in some moving truck that you can't get to.
Great point.
A lot of reasons there. So let's move on to kind of, you also mentioned something about the key for most buyers is selling their existing home. Why don't you talk a little bit more about keeping their eye on the price? What does that mean?
Yeah, so again, and we've alluded to this, we know that most individuals are going to have to sell their existing home in order to buy the new home. And so we want to make sure that they are keeping their eye on the prize, which is that sale. And integral to that are a couple of things. One is we want to make sure that they're keeping that house show ready. Again, you have to live. We understand all of those things we
Kids
talked
and
about
dogs
before.
mess up a house
Yeah,
in
kids
2
and dogs.
seconds.
Kids and dogs. We understand that you may get that, last minute showing request, but you've got to try your best to try to keep that home show ready. Something as simple as a curb appeal, right?
Okay.
Make sure that the lawn is mowed, making sure that there's mulch outside so that people can kind of see themselves in the home from the outside even. Accept showings. We're going to do as much as we can to drive traffic to your home, whether that's online or printed media, which we still do, believe it or not. But we want to make sure that as we're getting those folks to your home and those showing appointments are coming, that you're trying your best to accept those.
There are times when actually somebody that wants to sell their house says, well, I'm too busy, or the house isn't clean, and then they actually deny people from coming to see their house.
Yeah,
And it sounds kind of crazy.
We see it a lot. Look,
So that's what you mean by accept showings.
Absolutely.
Let people in. Keep your house cleaned up. Have it ready. It's the best that you can all the time.
you're right on, Chris. Look, it takes one person to put an offer in on your home, and maybe that person is a potential buyer. If we could see who that person is ahead of time, we would go and find that person, but it takes one person. So, and then the other point, Chris, is consider all offers. There are good offers and there are offers that are not as good, but just consider all offers, especially based on what the market looks like.
Perfect. All right. Those are some good counsel there. We're going to roll out to some of our last tips here, but we actually have to take one more break before we wrap.